Hey everybody, today on Bearded CV82 we're going to be taking a look at some specialty sockets. Now obviously when you're starting off there's going to be a few things that I would recommend going with from certain manufacturers. Other things like this extra long Sunex 3/4 inch deep socket, get into the reasons why. This o.t.c T55 Plus, and of course some varying others. I'm going to see why I would recommend some things while starting off and other things maybe you can hold off on. So let's get things turned around and see what we're going to be looking at. So obviously here laid out before you are a good number of different specialty sockets. Now if you're starting off diesel, there's going to be a number of things that, granted, you start off at a dealership or another location, you're probably going to be, as a beginner mechanic, looking at working on the lube rack. Well, lube rack or lube pit, it's going to vary depending on where you work, what they're going to call it. But as far as the heavy-duty diesel side, we've already taken a look at the SnapOn 1/2 inch plug socket for your inspection plugs and on your power dividers and your transmission, and as well the SnapOn 5/8 8-point, or basically square plug socket. Matco has their version as well of these, as do a number of other manufacturers, so you just might have to do some shopping around, or maybe spend the $20 or maybe $30. Somewhere between $20 and $30 was what this cost, and it's a daily use item. Same thing on this 5/8 there again, for the square plug socket, also roughly around the same price range, 1/2 inch drive. If you're working in a lube pit and you do have to provide your own tools, these would be two things that obviously you're going to be using day in, day out. You work in a smaller shop for general services, these would be two sockets that you'll be using day in and day out. I would recommend getting something along this line: 1/2 inch plug socket and a 5/8 8-point socket for your inspection plugs, drain plugs, those sort of things. Now on another note, we have here, this is a SnapOn 1/2 inch drive. That is a India Michael Delta 160 Alpha. This is a 12-point 1/2 inch drive. This one I just had warrantied out a couple weeks ago, and used it once since then. So it does look brand new because, well, frankly, it kind of is brand new because I did have to warranty it out. Had the other one for about 3 years. This I use primarily for U-joints. This would be the one thing where you want to go with you might want to go with a tool truck brand. It's a fairly common item for the tool trucks to keep in stock, for one. And two, if you're going to be using it every day, or at least on a weekly basis, this would be, you purchase the one socket for its intended purpose. U-joints being those, typically you're going to have an impact on this when you go to take off U-joints because they are stubborn on a Class 8 diesel. In a line with that, this one here, which is part number India Michael Delta Mike 160 Alpha. Yeah, Delta Mike 160 Alpha. This is a 16 millimeter shallow impact. This is for starters on Cummins, and has been used quite a bit. I've had this for a couple of years, and it has come in quite handy. Eventually, within the next few months, I might have to warranty this one out. But that is where you go with, there again, SnapOn, Mac, damn air compressor, what have you, for your heavy Specialty items I would recommend as well if you're planning on doing a lot of them. We have around 75 CNGs in our fleet that all run the same starter bolts. This guy has come in very handy. So, number one, your half inch, obviously, for your U-joints. Number two, know what you're going to be working on and what you might need. And if you need to, buy things individually. It's not too bad. I think this was around $20 originally when I purchased it. It's been more than worth the money. And this one might have been around $22 to $23, maybe $24-ish. But it was a one-time purchase so far that I've used the hell out of. Got to be careful there. Adapters. Obviously, yeah, you see that one. This one spends more time on a half-inch ratchet for barring over the engines when I'm doing the overhead on the Cummins, or for doing wheel seals. This really doesn't see an impact all that much. The marks there from vice grips trying to get it out of the front crank insert on one of the Cummins. It got stuck in there, but that was what it was. And then again, it's Harbor Freight. Yeah, it's lifetime warranted. It's a half to 3/4 adapter, but this thing is actually quite well. I'm happy with this. And should it ever crack, break, wear out, or whatever, yeah, Harbor Freight, it's a little bit of a drive, but I've got no problem with this one. You buy the set of these for around maybe $20, and it goes from 1 inch all the way down. Do keep in mind, though, that the reducers that they have, I would not recommend, but they're ones where it goes the next step up. Yeah, if you're using them for wheel seals and that sort of thing, barring over engines, they work decent enough that they do pay for themselves existentially. Now we're going to go ahead, your universal adapters. Your universal adapters, I got pinless. This one, this is the half inch. I did have to warranty this one out as well, but I do recommend it. I had a Cornwell one for 5 years before it crapped out on me. I had this one for 3 years before it crapped out on me. Pinless style. And these are stronger because they will hold a socket readily. Well, yeah, you turn it and obviously it's going to go, but for the most part it will hold whatever socket you're holding pretty straight, and that is a heavy socket, regardless of the angle. Some cheaper ones out there. Number one, kind of like we discussed with the Capri tools, they are wider by a good amount, as you can see. That might be an impingement for you, but also the Harbor Freight ones that I've seen, the other guy has one, and it just has a habit of falling. Like, you hold it by one end and this will droop. These might be something that you might want to look at the tool trucks for. Here's my 3/8 that I've had for quite a while. There again, pin on this one still holding up, but mostly it's just these cordless. So you might want to look at a tool truck for these guys. This one definitely been using the hell out of. And that's the other thing too, warranty. These are very common items that you will find on a tool truck, and as you need them, obviously get them. If you're in a tool program where you do get half off, like if you're in a school or something like that, I would recommend biting the bullets on the half inch, 12 point for sure, and then these two guys. Yeah, if you're going to get them half off, it might be a little bit of cash, but it'll be worth it. Definitely in the long run, because they're going to be things that you use every day. Here again, I don't have a Cornwell dealer, otherwise I would have seen if Cornwell had one of these. This is a 14 millimeter line wrench style crow's foot from SnapOn. This has come in handy for some things and for installation of sensors. Pretty much all that gets used for. And then here again, crow's feet. Cornwell set. This went from 3/8, so from 3/8 here, clear up to the 1 inch here. I forget what I paid for this. It might have been shy of $200 a little while back. It's been a very good set, and 15/16 and 1 inch are the two widest. Everything else shares, as you can see, pretty thin profile for getting into tighter spots. This has been a very good set to me. Then I've got an 1.25 inch SnapOn 3/8 drive that I do use on occasion as well, but there again, this one was kind of a specialty use. I can justify buying one. Overall, everything on this rack paid for itself, which is another thing you have to look at. Then we're getting into the world of CNGs. Alright, so magnetic spark plug socket. It's coming, folks, for some fleets. This was one thing I was able to more than justify for what I do, but then again, you want to make sure you know what you're going to be working on before you go spend the money on something like this. o.e.m makes one. There's a couple other manufacturers out there as well that do make a magnetic spark plug socket, but it'd be something I'd hold off on until you know if you're going to be working on something steadily. We have a fleet, like I said, of massive CNG units, so this gets used quite a bit. Obviously, for me, worth the money. You'll have to use your decision. And then here for DEF filters, I've got on Volvos and Cummins. It's a 27 millimeter. This is just an older gear wrench I've had for quite a while. This will get used on them when we go to do those. One place I used to work at used the hell out of it. Here we've got Detroit's, another story. Air brakes, there again, another thing. If you're going to be working in a trailer bay, truck bay, the odds of you working with drum brakes still is very up there. This 3/4 inch extra deep Sunex 224XD, been very handy, and this was $15 on Amazon, and I'll go ahead and I'll slap a link down below for that guy. But also for road calls, you can hook this up to a cordless if you're doing a road call, changing out the piggyback, or getting all your brakes prepped here in the shop. Some chambers will come caged if you're swapping out the whole chamber. It is what it is, but for $15, this socket's been used plenty here in the shop and worked great. Everybody else uses it because I'm the only one with a deep 3/4 inch socket. Then also, here again, this is a Master Force made in the USA adapter that I've had for quite a while, 1/2 to 3/8. It works good. Hasn't busted on me yet, but the o.t.c 6192, this is a T55 plus. I use this for breaking free the jack bolt on the fan clutches when I go to rebuild them, this little guy here, but they do proceed deeper in depth than this guy will go. But once you get it free with the T55 plus, I will go in with the T55 and finish going straight down with it. Because once you break it free with this, you're pretty much good to go to, if you've got a longer T55, Capri 30603, that will finish the rest of your job for you. So we've already covered crow's feet of different types, adapters, universals, specialty sockets of some sorts. Now we're going to look at, there again, as you can see, this is an 1 1/8. This is a snap-on. I use the hell out of this socket, as you can obviously see. This was a buy once, cry once ordeal on this 1 1/8, because I use the hell out of this for shocks, the shock bolts. It's a 3/4 inch bolt, inch and an eighth head on both the bolt and the nut. That's primarily what this one gets used for, is for steer shocks, drive shocks, those sorts of things. Some of your basic repairs that you might run across in the shop, you go buy a specialty tool. There again, kind of like these guys, buy one that you're not going to regret. It might be a chunk of change, but if it pays itself off, it'll be worth it. And then we come into universal sockets. As you can see here, between the Capris, well, the Capris over here, SnapOn's over here, there's some differences: height, depth, and width. Obviously represented by these two. Now this one I have been able to use. Power divider was where this came in handy because of the bolt on the power divider. This actually was able to allow me to get into a tighter spot than the Snap-on was, to where I didn't have to double wrench a bolt loose for swapping out a power divider. This actually being more shallow and shorter helped me out quite a bit. So, and I think this might have been around $15 or $20. This was a 15/16 that I bought. There you go, 5-5358's the part number on that. But for just about an ungodly number of other things, the 15/16s here, especially cab mounts, those sorts of things, this being deeper than the Capri tools, focus you friggin', has helped me out quite a bit. Wasn't able to use this one as much for, like, say, the cab mounts, but I still use this one for the cab mounts, getting into an irregular angle. This universal was, same as the inch and an eighth, a once ordeal buy for a specialty purpose. Now, if there are going to be some things that I would recommend you get starting off, I'd hold off on most of your universals. I would get a universal adapter because you can always put a socket onto these guys. Actually, let me work this out for you. Alright, so the ones I would recommend most: your plug sockets, your universals, your half-inch drive for U-joints, these guys, and a T55 plus of some sort, and a longer T55. Your half to 3/4, and your 3/4 inch extra deep. These guys, if you were going to start off with some specialty sockets, these would be them. Now, it is a little bit, but some things do cost more than others. Well, especially that guy. But that will be more than enough to start you off with something you might run across. So there you have it, everybody. Kind of my basic rundown from stuff that I could see somebody starting off in diesel needing. Something for U-joints. You might see a lot of that if a lot of stuff gets towed in. Some good thinner walled pinless universals. Granted, a lot of the kits, like the gear wrench kit, would come with one, for instance, if you were to get that. At least it's something to start with. But a good universal, extra deep, never hurts. But you're starting off, the one thing you're definitely going to be doing is checking a lot of fluids. So, with that, that's kind of my basic take. Some things hold off on. Other things you're definitely going to want right off the start. It's going to be one of those things. You're new to an industry, or fresh, as a shop would put it. It's going to be a lot of fluids, a lot of oil changes. Some things you're just not going to move around from. If you show proficiency in that, you'll get put under the wing of somebody else. Now, in the case of other specialty sockets, Faye Hadley, I'll put a link to her channel up over here. She had it said pretty good when she got started off. One of her mentors, if you will, that took her under her wing, told her 3 very specific things. If you use it once, it is what it is. Or if you, let me rephrase. If you borrow it once, that's fine and dandy. If you borrow it twice, start saving up for it. Borrow it 3 times, go buy it. Now, my perspective is, a small shop like this, there's just a few of us mechanics here. We're flexible. The bigger the shop, well, a lot more of certain things you're gonna see. For me, well, I get stuck mostly working on the trucks, and yeah, I do some of the stuff on the trailers too. Not as much as a couple of the other guys. Just the way it is. I'm good on the overheads, I'm good on the starters, I'm good on the heavy stuff. So I've got certain things. Other people that have borrowed some stuff, they've gone out and they've bought it after using it once, maybe using it several times over the course of the year. That's the other thing. You've got to use it once a year because it's say something big that somebody else has that, you know, using it once every so often is one thing, but using it, say, 2-3 times in the course of a month, if it's a specialty item, you might want to start planning on getting one of your own. For instance, other guy here, he used mine once, and a week later he went out and bought himself one because, well, $100 price range for this behemoth. It's another story. So, anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember, shop safety is just as important as firearm safety. If you screw something up, somebody could die. Any questions? Leave them down below. We'll catch you later.